Was a girl running in our group. She had a high-speed motor in a 40 Ford Coupe. She had a racing cam and a supercharged. Look out, buddy, hot rod and large. She's a hot rod. She's a hot rod.
Every week I talk about all these plants that are popping up across the country. Everybody's going to bed with everybody, and they're collaborating on battery factories and battery recycling factories and battery rebuilding factories.
Right.
But this kid had an experimental car. You think about it, 2014, all-electric vehicle. That's pretty experimental.
Well, I mean, again, it's caveat emptor. You should have done a little homework on this.
That's dinosaur stuff. Well, but the thing is, how do you have a car like that and not have a battery for it anymore?
Right.
Who made the battery?
Well, I mean, it's the same with a Leaf or something like that. Imagine some of those early electric cars. I doubt you can, you're going to go down to AutoZone and get a battery for it.
Oh, so no, you're not.
That's what I'm saying. It's something that you need to keep. It's just like, well, you make fun of the DeLorean. If I bought the DeLorean and came home and said, George, I need to get a new engine for the DeLorean. Like, yeah, I've got one in back. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the whole thing. You should know better.
Oh, yeah, I even got a flux capacitor.
Yeah, exactly.
I got it all. Yeah.
We're at the flux capacitor jokes, aren't we?
I can get you to 88 miles an hour. You'll be somewhere. You got to love it. I mean, this the whole thing, the whole trend to electricity, Chuck, is, and this is kind of your baby. You like the high tech. You love the higher tech, the better. And I do too, to a point. This whole, they were talking to me. I was reading up on something for Ron today, doing a diagnostic on my computer at my desk, and I had to tell them what algorithms were. And because they were telling me to use this algorithm to figure out this potential problem on this sensor.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me like, what the hell's an algorithm or whatever. Did I say that right?
The algorithm.
Algorithm?
That's generally what we say, but.
Well, it's tomato.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just the way it's gone. I mean, I don't have a problem with that as long as it's all thinkable, as long as it's all repairable by everyone. You shouldn't have to have a vehicle. First of all, you shouldn't be forced to buy anything. Ever. With your money, it's your money.
Like Twitter?
Like Twitter. If you
Where's my rim shot button here?
Ding. Got one back on me. Anyway, state of California says they're going to go all electric. What if you can't get a charger in your home? What if you can't live near a charger? What are you going to do? Park your car 3 blocks away and charge it overnight? Somebody's going to come by and unplug it and steal it.
Yeah, that's what I wonder about people like in New York where, same idea. And then these guys have to, there's a lot of people that park their car in the street and have to move the car once a week and all this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
I mean, I've been to places in Chicago where I go to visit a friend and I have to park 3 blocks over. It's like, what are you going to do? Plug into somebody's house that night and say, I owe you a charge? I mean,
yeah.
There's a lot of logistics there. I mean, again, but that's
even if you can have a charger.
Right. Well, like you said, I mean, you can't have, if you can't have a grill in your apartment, I doubt they're going to let you put a supercharger in there.
They're not going to let you put a supercharger in the basement. I know doggone well it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. I mean, the infrastructure isn't there, Chuck. It's just not ready.
Well, I agree. And I mean, we're starting to see some of that like in Texas where Tesla sent out a message the other day that said, try not to charge your car more than you have to and things like that.
California sent out something last week about turn your air conditioning down.
Again, it is a car show, but I want to talk about this real quick because I've always said there was always this sort of, we called it a conspiracy that government would want to control your thermostat. And California wanted to do it, and now we've got the technology where they are doing it, like in Texas. Like you said, they're basically saying, no, nobody's air conditioner is going to be at 72 during this heat wave. We're going to turn everybody up to 75 or 80 or something.
I'm telling you, that's what they're going to do with your car.
Well, and now it looks like they're going to do that with your speed limits, too. That's one of the things I want to talk about.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about that when we come back later after the next break. But, yeah, I'll tell you what. I'm interested in that, and I'm also interested in subscriptions.
Yes, interesting stuff.
Oh, my goodness. Are we going to have subscriptions in our world?
Or will we have people hacking the subscriptions?
Oh, absolutely. If you know what, when the cable TV first came out,
yeah,
I had more offers for a black box than the Man in the Moon.
Every pizza place sold you a cheater box.
Yeah, you could get it anywhere.
Right.
So let's see what happens with this. What do you think?
Yeah, this is an interesting story out of Europe. And again, one of the things that we have to remember is, especially we're talking about, my wife is a fan of European cars. So anything that Europe does will eventually, find its way here.
It comes here, absolutely.
So, I mean, whether you're talking about, any sort of technology or even the fact that the Europeans are going to be banning, internal combustion engines and things like that, it'll eventually make its way here. But this is an interesting story. On July 6th, the European Union formally introduced laws that require auto manufacturers to install speed limiting hardware on new vehicles. So, with the media, you read 10 different articles, you get 10 different, stories about what's going on. But what I was trying to get to the bottom of is, what does that entail necessarily?
Well, yeah, I'd like to know if it is like capped at 100 mile an hour.
Well, no. So what's
it capped at? Because in Europe they got the Autobahn, you can go any speed you want.
Well, and that was the interesting question: is how do you disable it if you're on the Autobahn? But so what I've been reading about is, it seems like what they're doing. Have you ever seen any of the technology, kind of like lane assist, or even like my wife's car? If you're somehow, it figures out you're driving drowsy and a coffee cup appears on the screen.
Oh,
no
really?
Joke. I forget if it was
be looking at your eyes,
right? Something like that. And so it basically
they have visor cameras in them.
Yeah. So I mean, so it's basically, I'll drive her car for a while, and all of a sudden a coffee cup pops up. I'm like, don't mind if I do, and stop and get a coffee. But so this technology will basically be a lot of, some people have described it similar to not wearing your seatbelt. It'll just ding and annoy the heck out of you. And then some people are saying it goes as far as, so they said it's not, the technology to limit you. It's not like, I was using the example of like your GPS knows the speed limit and it'll tell you, hey, by the way, you're speeding on this highway or whatever. It doesn't seem like they're using that technology they say they will never stop you from doing it, but that's now.
That's what they say now.
Right. And so that was the whole thing, is that the technology is basically, it's going to ding at you. They talk about maybe haptic feedback, your steering wheel might shake or something. But then also they mention limiting horsepower. So basically a governor. So, okay, they're saying they're not going to keep you from doing something. And again, that gets unsafe as well if you're in a situation where...
What if you need that power?
What if you're trying to go up a hill or something? I mean, that's the whole thing. Like so they say they're not going to regulate you or control you, but then also regulating your horsepower, to me, is kind of a big deal.
This whole thing reeks of Big Brother is watching.
Right. And
I don't like it.
Right.
I don't like it at all. What's to stop them from... making your car, or keep seeing your car going some place they don't want you to go until you stop your car.
Well, and it was interesting. I was reading an article about something. It always been kind of an urban legend, but there are places, and I forget if it was North Carolina or South Carolina, where essentially there's an 18-mile stretch of road. It's basically like a causeway, and they hit your plate on the way onto the causeway and like off the causeway. And if you travel the 18 miles in a certain speed, ticket in the mail.
Okay.
And so we've always heard that about like Illinois toll roads and stuff like that. If you go too fast through the I-passes, they'll send you a bill or something like that. So, I mean, same deal where they're starting to use more of this automated technology to, I mean, even if they don't regulate your speed, if you get from point A to point B too fast and they send you a ticket, then, what are you going to do?
Well, they might be slow in sending those tickets out, but I went through the I-pass a month ago.
Yeah.
At ludicrous speed.
Yeah.
And I never heard about it. So.
Well, but I mean, again, that kind of becomes the question is, Europe is
this urban legend or what?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's an urban legend until the bill comes in the mail.
Yeah.
I mean, even we saw like in Chicago, for instance, there's all these speed cameras, and then they actually said that fatal traffic accidents are up. The revenue's up and fatal traffic accidents are up.
Fatal accidents are up.
So, I mean, that's the thing. So it's clearly not even like red light cameras. We've seen studies that red light cameras actually cause more accidents because people are slamming on the brakes and not get a ticket.
The rules are 6 mile an hour over and you get a ticket.
Well, remember, it used to be 8 or 9, and now they dialed it back when they needed money. So again, that same idea. Well, what if it just make it 0 miles per hour over the speed limit? You get a ticket because we need money. I mean, that's the question is, you always look at it from the perspective of
who can hold their car at the speed limit. Come on.
Right.
Without cruise control.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Then
you can't use cruise control
that'll be
in the city.
That'll be the excuse, though, is, well, you can't regulate, so we'll regulate it for you.
Well, I don't want it regulated for me.
So that becomes the question, is sort of what is going to be, and that's always sort of the thing is, so we know, Europe is doing it. So of course there's going to be places like California that are probably going, oh, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And so once California does it, that means the mandate is going to come to all vehicles in this country once one state adopts it. And so that becomes a question as it starts off with just, it's just a dinging while you're speeding.
I can imagine me jumping in the car, rushing my wife to the hospital to have a baby. I get to 35 mile an hour on Ridge Road and it stops.
Right.
That's it, as fast as you can go. Just keep going, but it won't go any faster, and I'm in a hurry.
Right. Or even, volunteer fireman or any kind of scenario. You come up with all these scenarios.
Volunteer fireman,
yeah,
yes.
Any kind of scenario. So that's the idea is there's always this idea of this blanket solution for the greater good, but they don't think about all of the what ifs. Or even, I always joke about, like if your self-driving car went the speed limit on the Dan Ryan, you'd get run down because the speed limit's like 45 miles an hour.
You would get run over. Oh.
So that's the thing.
It'd be horrible.
It's government thinking. It's just similar to the speed limit, the speed cameras. Is that government's doing it, saying it's for saving lives. It's clearly not saving lives, but they're collecting revenue off of it. But they're not going to stop doing it. So that's sort of the thing. Is that where does that end? And I always use the example of the technology is there, and the person today is saying no, we're not going to use it to spy on you to regulate your speed or anything like that. It's just going to be a ding, and then next time it won't be a ding. But even with Tesla, that's been a big issue with self-driving is, can my self-driving car speed? And if it does, who gets the ticket? Or can my car drive for me while I'm drunk? Can I get a DUI while Tesla's driving for me? If I'm in the back seat and Tesla's doing,
well, I wouldn't think.
So that's the whole question is can you get a DUI if you're behind the wheel and the Tesla's doing the work?
My God, you're in the back seat. The Tesla's driving you home and gets in a crash.
Right.
My God, now we have a problem.
Now Elon's got to pay the check. I don't know.
Yeah, Houston, we have a problem.
Right. But again, it's all in. But just like the battery discussion, these are all interesting topics for the future of.
It's coming.
Yeah.
The future's now.
Right.
That's the problem. It's here.
And so that's the thing. If we don't stop and put the brakes on it, is that these things will just happen. They'll say, the new generation of cars do this now. They'll be like one of those omnibus bills at 2 a.m. on a Sunday. They'll pass the bill, and then all of a sudden now you have speed regulation in your car.
I know how that works. Trust me. I have way too many friends telling me that it is what it is. I hate that phrase.
Well, even going back to, I've been reading more about the right to repair. Even the idea of, there could be a day where, certain vehicles, Ford puts out their e-vehicles and they say, well, George, you can't work on our cars. You don't have the right to fix them.
Exactly.
And they basically put you and every other small business out of business.
They're absolutely shooting for that now.
Right. And so that's the whole thing is that's another concern is right to repair and things like that, where they'll just tell you, no, you can't fix our cars.
Out on the East Coast where you're talking about going next week, I got to tell you, they got the Right to Repair Act. And it's a big crusade out that way.
Right.
And it's just not, it's not going to be enough if it doesn't get passed by more states.
Right.
The manufacturers want you to have to go back to them.
Well, I was thinking about earlier. My wife bought a knockoff printer cartridge. Right. She buys a knockoff printer cartridge, throws it in the printer, and the printer says, "Nope, this is not a real print cartridge." What if you go and get a rebuilt battery? You spend thousands of dollars on a rebuilt battery. You throw it in your Ford or your Tesla, and it goes, "Nope, that's not a real battery."
Yeah, and the guy's phone number is no good no more.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. That's the whole thing is that we're not talking about a print cartridge. We're talking about thousands of dollars in batteries. Even the idea of saying, a guy could fix your battery for $1,000, but they don't want him to. They want you to spend $10,000 or $20,000 on a new battery.
Or a complete rehab or something. Yeah,
so.
It's not just repair a little bit. No, it's going to be a whole new ball game, and Big Brother is watching you. Trust me.